What if I told you that a single decision, made in the quietest moment of your despair, could change everything about who you are, where you end up, and how the world remembers you? Most people never believe this until they look back at their lives and realize that all the paths, the victories, and even the mistakes trace back to one turning point. You may think your choices don't matter. That destiny is already written. But let me tell you the story of a man named Aaron, and you'll see how one decision, born in pain and doubt, carried the power to rewrite an entire life. Aaron had always lived safely, too safely. He worked in a small office tucked in a corner of a crowded city where the days blurred into one another. His routine was predictable: wake up early, commute in silence, shuffle papers behind his desk, eat lunch alone, and then return to his small apartment where he spent his evenings scrolling through the endless noise of the world. He told himself this was life, that he was being responsible. Yet deep down, a voice whispered that he was wasting the only chance he had at truly living. Still, he ignored it. Fear had its claws in him. He thought, if I don't take risks, nothing bad will happen. But as he would soon learn, nothing good would happen either. Then, one afternoon, his world cracked. He was called into his manager's office and told the company was downsizing. His position, though steady for years, was now unnecessary. The words stung. We value your service, but it's just business. Those words followed him out of the building, just as they once followed Daniel in another story. With his box of belongings pressed against his chest, Aaron walked into the busy streets, the sound of cars and voices drowning out his thoughts. For the first time, the illusion of safety shattered. He had nothing. No job, no purpose, no direction. For days, he sank into silence. He would wake up and stare at the ceiling, feeling the crushing weight of failure. Friends sent messages, offering advice, but he ignored them. Inside, he argued with himself endlessly. Part of him whispered bitterly that he was finished, that he should accept life had beaten him. Another part, the quieter but stronger part, asked if maybe, just maybe, this was the chance to do something different. He recalled conversations with his father years ago, moments when his father had told him that life was too short to be spent hiding behind fear. He could almost hear his father's voice now, gently pressing him. One decision, Aaron. That's all it takes. Decide who you want to be. Late one night, sitting alone at his small kitchen table, Aaron pulled out a notebook. It had been years since he had written anything down, but something inside urged him to start. He scribbled ideas, fragments of dreams he once had as a teenager, dreams of building something of his own, of creating work that mattered, of leaving behind more than just paperwork in an office. He stared at those words, trembling with doubt. His mind mocked him. You? Start something? You're too old, too inexperienced, too weak. But another part of him fought back. It whispered that he had already lost everything, so what did he have to lose now? That night, he made the decision. He decided he would no longer wait for life to hand him purpose. He would create it himself. It was not a loud or dramatic moment. No one else witnessed it. But in the silence of his small kitchen, he chose to begin. And that single choice became the seed that would grow into a new life. The weeks that followed were brutal. Aaron struggled. He tried to build small projects, but most of them failed. He attempted to pitch ideas to people, only to be rejected or ignored. There were nights he fell asleep at his desk, exhausted and discouraged. Yet every morning, when despair crept back in, he reminded himself of the decision he had made. He told himself quietly, I will not return to the man I was before. I will not crawl back to safety. That sentence became his shield. Months later, something unexpected happened. One of the ideas he had almost abandoned suddenly began to work. It was small at first, just a trickle of success, but it was real. People noticed. They told him they admired his courage, that they wished they had his determination. Aaron would smile politely, but inside he laughed at the irony. They only saw the result. They didn't see the endless nights of failure, the silent tears, the arguments he had with himself in the dark. They didn't see how close he came to giving up every single day. But the truth was simple. He had made a decision, and he stuck to it. And that was enough to change everything. Years later, Aaron's life looked unrecognizable. The man who once shuffled papers in silence now stood before audiences, telling his story, inspiring others to make their own choices. He had built something lasting, something that gave meaning not only to his own life, but to the lives of others. And when people asked him what his secret was, he didn't speak of talent or luck. He simply said, "One decision. That's all it took. One decision not to give up on myself." So let me turn this story back to you. What if I told you that you too are only one decision away from rewriting your life? What if the despair you feel, the emptiness that haunts you, is not the end but the beginning? What if the voice inside you that says, "Do something different, take a risk, trust yourself," is not your enemy but your lifeline? Too many people wait for miracles, thinking that change will come from the outside. But change begins the moment you decide. It doesn't matter how small the decision is. It doesn't matter if you're afraid. What matters is that you choose not to stay where you are. Because here's the truth. Safety is an illusion. The job you think is secure can vanish overnight. The relationship you take for granted can crumble. The plans you cling to can fall apart in seconds. But the decision you make in those moments, when the world strips everything away, is the one thing no one can take from you. And that decision, though invisible at first, will shape the entire course of your life. Aaron E.'s story is a reminder that you don't need to wait for permission to begin. You don't need all the answers. You don't need to know the outcome. All you need is the courage to decide, even when you're terrified. Especially when you're terrified. That is when decisions have the most power. So I ask you again, what if I told you that your entire future could change with a single choice made today? Would you dismiss it, or would you dare to believe? Somewhere inside you, there is a decision waiting to be made. And when you finally choose, the world will never be the same again.